Yeah, I started, so I'm going to first start about how I got into this, and then why do I think, or in what ways do I think it um, is either the best way to do something, or at least a very good way to augment what I'm doing. So I'm a French professor, I'm a medievalist, and I really got started with this through immersive gaming. Um, and the reasons for that are, originally it was because I saw my little kid teach himself to read just because he wanted to be able to do these video games. So he was, watching, trying to figure things out. I was like, wow, that's a really powerful tool. It's not just so it's kind of through that gaming. And then I also just wanted to connect with my students in a different way. And to give a little background on me, I did study computer sciences as an undergraduate, and I've always kind of kept that on the side. So this was just kind of a post tenure way to learn new things and keep relevant, and just try to move forward with what I'm doing, combining kind of my background in tech with my now career as a French professor studying the Middle Ages. So the more I started thinking about it, I just kind of like, how do we show and make students feel what they might have felt in the Middle Ages, see what they saw, see what medieval people saw. And a lot of times reading doesn't do that for them, especially when we talk about, some kinds of visual types of things that you're reading about, that it just doesn't connect with every student for sure, but also with any students when the language is so far removed and so different from what students are used to. So I thought this might be a way to do it. And I saw this NEH Institute and applied for it and went to it on using immersion, different techniques for immersion for cultural heritage. So there I learned about 3D modeling and Unity as a game engine to put these into. So a lot of examples, some of them VR, some of them not. And I started to think about, what are some of these problems with representation of the past, of a different culture, of different peoples, and then also what are the opportunities? So, what kinds of things can we do when we have a 3D model that you can walk around, or you can move around and you can look at, and just like, what does that bring to our research? And I was seeing a lot of things that other people were doing, that especially archaeology and things like that. But, for French literature, it's a little, what does that bring? So for me, it was the connection with the past and having students really kind of experience it. So I'll get into that a little bit later more, but I do think largely that's what I was trying to do, is just kind of get myself, my students, and then finally colleagues to see what can we learn that's different if we look at it from all sides, as it were. So I did another NEH. I guess I'm really indebted to the NEH for this, at Duke University on virtual and augmented reality. And that was, I learned even more. And then I was really strongly influenced by the Center for Teaching's program on students as producers. So for that one, I just started thinking, okay, yes, this is great, but maybe what's really cool is having students create their own environments, and 3D environments really move into them. So I had a student lab group of my own, Make Success. I can talk about that later with anybody who wants to, but the students learned a lot. The question is, did they produce something that I could use to put out? So I worked with students in Oli Mulvig's class. Oli and Bobby Bodenheimer have a VR class that they do, and my project was one that their students worked on a couple of times. So I'm going to show you some stuff from that. Let me screen share. Hopefully I can do that. So I just want to do that. All right. So that was the kind of final. These are the students that worked in my group in their final project. So I did it twice. Let me see if it will move to the next slide. This is, I believe it or not, this is one of the immersive environments that they created. But just kind of getting in there, feeling the size, the scale of what a medieval cathedral felt like. We don't have anything like this in Nashville. This is not something that I can really just take students on a trip with. And they did an amazing job. So this was a storytelling thing. I got into how can we tell stories from the past within this environment. So this was one way that these students came up with to do that. that I thought was really good. Just one more scene from that for kind of eye candy, and another. So this medieval marketplace. Now, there are a lot of problems with this, not this particular thing, but with working with the past. There's a lot of things we don't know about. There are things that we have to kind of fill in. And there's also the question of, student engagement. How do you get students to engage if they don't see something there that kind of interests them? So I've been working through all of those issues in my different classes, and I've taught now, I guess, I teach virtual reality experiences in almost all of my classes, at least for part of it. But I did teach an entire class on virtual worlds where we brought in people who are using virtual reality in different ways, whether it's psychology experiments or to do medicine, to do football. It turns out the football coach was using virtual reality at that time to train the quarterback. Well, maybe everybody, but definitely the quarterback talked about that. So students could really see how it was used in real life. And I still get, this was an honors class, but I still get messages from those students when this recent things about real estate in the metaverse came out. There was kind of like a quick back and forth from everyone about that. So I have no doubt that this connects well with students. And I also, for all my students and all my student groups, one thing I found was that in order to create these environments, they really have to read these texts closely. So I think that VR, it doesn't have to be VR, but I will say it has to be some sort of artistic representation, I guess, of what they're reading that makes them read so closely that they have to fill in the holes. And, because you can't put a naked person out there. You're going to have to make up some clothing. So you might have to do some research. You might have to just kind of read closely and figure out what you're going to do, read some other medieval source. So I've been doing that with my students, and I think it's been working great. For my own research, well, actually, I'll talk about that in a second. I'm still working on this project, and I'm also working on one to teach Old French in an immersive environment, because bringing it back to the whole reason I got into this, the idea that you could learn language in an immersive environment is not something new for foreign language teachers. We send students to study abroad all the time. So this was my thought, hey, instead of letting Old French studies die, which they are kind of doing, how can we engage students in the way that we know works for learning language, which is immersion. So started on that, and I have a couple of, it's developed there, and I also have a couple of grants out on that. And then finally, I'll just finish up with this. This is my like pass it forward sort of thing. So I had these, this is the grant that I just got this past year, and we've started going, a partner with at the University of Colorado Springs and I are teaching people how to do immersive environments for the global Middle Ages. And we're largely targeting people who don't have the resources at their universities and who are emerging scholars in emerging fields. So it's been a great experience so far, and gotten good feedback on that. So I'm going to stop there, and I want to hear about others, but please contact me if you have questions or ideas.